All right, welcome back into There Will Be Bourbon. I, as always, have a delicious offering from Buffalo Trace. It's actually Colonel Taylor in honor of the guest I have this evening, retired Army Colonel Theo Sellers. And before I bring him in, I just wanted to say that this is a man that has been always there for me throughout my career. He's offered some wisdom, and he's definitely allowed me to be more successful than I would have been had I not sought his counsel on a previous deployment to Afghanistan once upon a time. So, again, thank you very much, sir, for coming in, sharing kind of your experience, but also your take on a lot of the things that I feel are going on in this country. I think we would all benefit from hearing your words and also your experiences. So, Theo Sellers, welcome, sir. How are you?
Good, Eric. Good, Eric. Happy to be here. I'm not surprised that someone with strong opinions as yourself would have a podcast. I think you've been a little too kind in terms of my impact on your career, but I really do appreciate the kind words. Just a little background for your listeners on me. Again, I'm retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Theo Sellers. I spent 27 years on active duty in primarily the field artillery branch. I spent 5 years in my secondary, as we used to call it, which was psychological operations. Then went back to field artillery. I have 4 combat deployments. 3 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan. I've done several other postings overseas in Korea, Germany, Turkey. I spent a lot of time in Central America during my time in PSYOPs, primarily in Honduras and Nicaragua and Costa Rica. So yes, I do. I've lived a long, good life. I've had a lot of great adventures, so I'm willing to share. I'm willing to share those with your listeners, Eric.
So that's interesting. I knew you were artillery. I did not know you were in PSYOPs at one point.
Yep. Spent 5 years, 95 to 2000.
Okay, so that was pre 9/11, which is I think a big thing that people need to realize. So what was what was the PSYOPs mission, or what was your primary focus back then during that time?
Back then, yeah, during that time, well, PSYOPs, as you probably know, the PSYOPs branch falls under the Special Operations Command.
Right.
So particularly back then, the brigade was broken down into each area of the world, similar to the way special forces branches are. My area was Central America, South America, Central America. And my primary focus during that time was actually when I was deploying I was working on what was called the demining mission in Honduras, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica, because during the war, basically what they did was they mined the borders of Honduras and Nicaragua and Costa Rica. They were mined with landmines, but of course they did not map them or record the locations of the landmines. So what ended up happening was children and farmers essentially were being killed by landmines. So part of our mission was we worked with the militaries and worked to educate it was actually a big deal. We worked to educate the civilians, the civilian populace, and in particular the school children, on the dangers of the mines, what they should do when they spot a mine. Obviously, what the mines look like, what they could do to you. We had different hotlines, numbers they were supposed to call to report them, and so we could go in and deactivate the mines.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it was actually it was kind of a big deal. In fact, in Nicaragua, what we did was we came up with this idea. It was basically a Superman. We used the Superman character. We got permission from DC Comics to do it. So, and it was all in Spanish. So we had these Superman comic books that focused on just what I talked about.
Oh, okay.
Why the mines are dangerous, what you should do to report the mines, so on and so forth. And with Nicaragua, actually, I ended up working with a lot of NGOs on this as well, is we actually got their version of the Secretary of Education to implement those comic books into their curriculum,
Oh,
their
wow.
teaching curriculum,
Okay.
for the entire country.
And so
So,
they were that widespread that you guys
yep,
felt, wow.
yep, yep. Yeah, because when you started having with the heavy rains, with the a couple of earthquakes, so on and so forth, these
That
natural events, they just,
they come to the
they ended up,
surface.
yep,
Right.
exactly, and they ended up, they ended up
That's crazy.
miles and miles away
From where
from
they were
where
actually,
yeah,
yeah.
from they were originally laid. So,
That's crazy. And
yep,
I think you said this before, but not that anyone listening would know, but did you actually learn Spanish or do you speak it?
yes,
Okay, because that's
yes, I
kind of our
did.
connection with our good friend
Yep,
AJ. I know, like you kind of,
AJ, yes, it
yeah.
is. What they did was is it was I think it was a 3-month course. It was the special forces language school that
Okay.
we all went to. I had some soft guys in my class. It was about a 4-month class, and then after that, we did what we called I can't remember the term now, but anyway, I ended up going to the Dominican Republic for a month.
Kind of like some
I lived
immersion
with
training, basically.
immersion. There you
Yeah,
go, with
I got you,
immersion.
sir.
Yeah, it was immersion, and I lived with this family for
Oh,
30 days. And during the day, I went to a school there as well to learn more about the cultural and become a better Spanish speaker as well. So it's just when you're doing that type of job, you've got to be able to communicate, speak the language. So
exactly. That and did you guys have interpreters with you, or was it mainly just you guys were self-reliant?
no, no,
Yeah,
no interpreters. It wasn't like Iraq and
yeah.
Afghanistan. Um, you had to buckle down and learn the language. So the rite of passage was if you were successfully able to order a pizza over the phone. If you could if you could order a pizza over the phone, then you were considered you know they considered, okay, you can speak the language good enough to stay here and do the job. So
And let's be honest, what more do you really need to know wherever you are than to order a pizza? I mean, that's
exactly,
survival. That's all. It's the only thing you
exactly.
really, whatever country you find yourself in, if you're afraid of the local food or whatever, just order a
Right,
pizza. It'll be all right. It's pizza.
right,
You
right,
can't screw it up.
exactly,
Well, that's
exactly.
legit. Okay, and then so you said you did that from 95 to 2000. So that's why I'm not trying to turn it into a 9/11 discussion, but I always find this
Yep.
stuff super compelling because that's why I joined. But then talking to some of the guys who came before me, like yourself, and when I had Ron Moeller, that the retired CIA paramilitary guy, he talked about his shift while he was in the CIA and how the agency shifted after 9/11. So since you were an active duty officer at that time, what was 9/11 like for you?
Okay. Um, the year before, I was in Korea. I
Okay.
was actually at Osan Air Base. I was part of the um, Seventh Air Force staff there. So, and my primary mission then was we're basically focused on targeting, the North Korean targets that we had. Um, so after that, I was assigned to FORCECOM headquarters, and I was in the G3 ops, which was in the I called it the dungeon, but in the basement of FORCECOM headquarters. Um, they had a big vault door to get in and out. So
Mhm.
on 9/11, one of my very good friends He was stationed at the Pentagon at the time. And we essentially talked on the phone every day. Every morning, we would call one another, just talk about what's going on, so on and so forth. So on this particular morning, I walk into the vault, and everyone's standing around the television. And I said, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And they said, "A plane just hit one of the twin towers." I said, "Seriously?" They go, "Yeah." And I was like, "Man, that's crazy." So as I'm standing there and we're talking, the second plane hits the second building. So I immediately go and I go to my desk and I call my buddy up at the Pentagon, and we're talking on the phone. I said, "Man, this is crazy. What's going on?" He said, "We don't know yet. We're trying to figure out what's going on." And I remember saying to him, I said, "Do you think this is a terrorist attack?" And he said, "I'm not sure." And then all of a sudden, the line went dead.
Mm.
And when the line went dead, someone yelled out, "A plane just flew into the Pentagon." So of course, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
damn.
so
Okay, now
right,
shit just got
right,
real.
right. So of course, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And again, he and his wife, we all went to college together, South Carolina State College, now South Carolina State University. So we're all good friends, and I don't want to call her because I don't want her to worry. So I was biting my nails until probably like 1500, 1530. And I finally called her and I asked her if she'd heard from him. And she said yes, and he was fine. Fortunately, he was not in the part of the building that the plane struck, but he did end up helping pull the people out of the damaged part. So he still, he still feels a certain way about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so again, and this is why I think this is important, because Ron was the same way. You're experiencing this in another country. You're experiencing this overseas doing a different mission. Like, you're not stateside watching this stuff take place. So,
No, I was stateside.
oh, I thought you were in Korea.
No. The year prior, I was in
Oh,
Korea.
the year prior. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I got you.
I was at Forcecom headquarters.
Okay. So then that's my next question, and then we'll get into kind of where I originally was going to take this, but this stuff's just so compelling to me because I think 9/11 is so. Everyone's got a story about it, right?
Right.
Everyone's got a story about what they were, where they were that day.
Yours is you enlisted after that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, everyone's
Yep.
got a story about what they were doing or where they were that day. And I think it's even more interesting for guys like yourself who were in. You guys were already in, you were serving, you were doing whatever you were doing, you were at Forcecom. So what was September 12th like for you guys? Like,
Well, September 12th we were all basically trying to get our bearings, trying to get things figured out. So, for me, for example, being in the G3, we immediately set up 24/7 ops. I mean, just full stand up, just like during a deployment in a TOC. So, of course, I drew the short straw and had to work the. I ended up doing I think it was either 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 8. I think it was 8 to 8. So I ended up doing that, and we were basically started running 24-hour ops, and we were helping planning what was going to happen next, in terms of we knew we were going to end up deploying troops here and there. So first, obviously, it was Afghanistan primarily, and in fact, I remember I was involved in an email with then Brigadier General Petraeus.
yeah, wow, okay.
Over who he wanted as his aide to deploy with him in support of operations. So, yeah.
And that's what's See, stuff like that is where I feel like, man, I would have loved to know kind of how that planning went. You know what I mean? Because and just to backpedal, I know there's a few things. Just I don't want to pretend everyone knows what we're talking about. So when you hear, Theo say NGOs, he's talking about non-government
No,
organizations.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
No,
I'm sorry.
I got you. So, and when he says the G3, he's talking about a three within military terms is the operations cell, right? So you do future ops,
Right.
you do current ops, coup ops, foo ops, you do all those things planning. So essentially, you're in that cell that's planning what the hell we're going to do next, and that's why I think like, man, that would have been such very compelling, obviously, but man, that's got to be pretty damn scary because you guys were still. Did you guys know at that point that it was terrorism, or was it kind of just everything was still
Well,
kind of flowing?
well, there wasn't any confirmation because, as you know, initially, Bin Laden's response, he didn't accept responsibility for it. His organization didn't accept responsibility for it. But, again, anybody with, any experience knew, okay, this is more than, it was obviously a coordinated attack,
Yeah.
because again, the aircraft that the brave civilians took down themselves in Pennsylvania, and it was obviously headed somewhere, more than likely the White House. So, we knew it was a coordinated attack. It was a terrorist attack, but it was just a matter of figuring out who was responsible,
Right.
who was responsible for it. So we went through a series of, there was a lot of planning going on. I know I ended up going to Carlisle Barracks at the War College. We went there for about 2 or 3 weeks on this planning exercise, just doing different courses of actions on what we need to do, how we're going to do it, so on and so forth. And actually too, if you remember, that year the Winter Olympics was coming up in Utah, and
Right.
I went. Yeah, so I went there as well, part of a group for us to do a security assessment on the sites there and what they needed to do to bolster up their security to have a successful event. So, there was a lot of that going on, but it was just a lot of essentially war gaming. And when I say war gaming, the different courses of actions, trying to figure out who was responsible, where they were, and where we needed to focus our energy on striking back.
Crazy, man. That's
Yep.
and the craziest thing is not to get into this because I was going to eventually bring in Afghanistan at the end of this, but so that was damn near 20 years ago.
Yep. I know.
And it's great because like I can vividly remember where I was and what I was doing, and it definitely wasn't
Yep.
what you were doing, but you recall these things so clearly, and it's just like we're not talking about this like it's 5 years ago, like this is 20
Right.
years ago almost, and that's
Right.
what disheartens me the most because this. I joined because of 9/11, and I've been in 18 years now, and
We're still there.
just saying.
We're
So
still
all right,
there,
let me
and what
let
have
me
we
let me
really
try and
accomplished?
let me try and steer us to where I wanted to get you on is let me on a scale of 1 to 10, just how dicked up has 2020 been?
I gotta tell you, Eric, it's really something else, Eric. It just is. It's just.
Have you
It's
seen a
something
year?
else.
Do you mind dating yourself? How old are you, sir?
No, I will be 56 on the 29th.
Okay, so great. Okay, so 56. I'm 39. You've seen a lot. All right. So is there a year that you can recall outside of 9/11 or 2001 where there was obviously a big deal going on? Can you remember anything in our time that you felt is even remotely akin to what's going on in 2020?
No, and my wife and I have these type of conversations. My two buddies and I, they're both, one's a retired lieutenant colonel, and the other's retired full colonel who was special forces. And in fact, he and I spent time together in Central America. And we talk about it in to a certain extent, I really didn't pay much attention to, to the outside world, outside of the military world I was in. I didn't pay too much attention to politics and, and all these different things. So, sometimes I say to myself, well, hell, maybe I was living in a bubble. Maybe a lot of this crazy stuff was going in the world and I just wasn't paying attention to it. But, I just got to tell you, it's just this whole atmosphere is just, I can't remember a time like this. Other than, like you said, other than, ramping up to go to war, I just can't remember a time like this.
Do you think it's amplified because of social media and that more people are paying attention, or you just
I think,
see more of the others?
I think it's a combination of all that stuff, Eric. I think while social media was probably created as this, Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff was created for people to be able to communicate and this, that, and the other. But I just think now it's just made things worse.
I agree 100%.
People can get on and say anything. They don't have to necessarily reveal who they are. And they can just say any crazy thing they want, any conspiracy theory. And I got to tell you, Eric, people believe it.
Yep.
And just about a month ago, I was at my car dealership to have my car serviced. So my service manager, she was new, and she knew my background, being retired military and everything. So she asked me, and she was serious. She said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." And she asked me if the COVID-19 virus was tied to the new 5G towers
I've seen
that were being erected.
Yeah.
And I took a deep breath and I told her, I said, "Ma'am, you can't believe everything you read on the internet." I said, "It's not true. There's no little chip or many chips that's people, that the government is putting in your body to track you and this, that, and the other." I said, "It's all a lie." I said, "Don't believe it. It's not true." But that's not people have said some crazy stuff to me, Eric. They've asked me some crazy things, and I just, even family members.
Oh, it's definitely family members. Yeah.
In South Carolina, they ask me crazy things, and I try to do my best to stay calm and calmly, at least try to, tell them that no, these things aren't true. But I think social media has made society worse.
And that's what I kind of wanted to ask you, because you and I really want to know how either you heard about it or what compelled you to originally sign up, because we joined around the same time.
About the same time.
And so,
yes.
So you joined in early 2009, and that's kind of when Twitter was just coming in. So I'm just curious, like, what was that? What did you see in Twitter? Like, and especially this was also pre like Department of Defense social media policy, where it was like, this was before they got to that. We either shut everyone down or we just let everybody have it. Right. So what did you see in Twitter at that time, or what made you sign up?
Okay. Well, actually first It was during my last deployment, which was in 2009, to Iraq, and my sister was begging me to join Facebook, and I said, I'm not doing that. I'm deploying. I'm going to combat. She said, no, no, it's great. This is how we're going to be able to keep in touch, and so on and so forth. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm a smart guy. I know not to give away, my
Right.
location, all this other stuff, and personal information. So I did, and it was a great way for me to, to keep in touch with everyone. I joined. I got on Skype. My wife, my wife and I, we had just gotten married. I think maybe 6 months before I deployed.
Mm-hmm.
We had just gotten married. So we Skyped. We Skyped almost every day because my team and I, we paid for our own internet service. I think
Yeah,
it was
the
with this
smart way
Greek,
to do
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. So with this Greek internet company, so we Skype. I Skype with her every day. My mom called. Everyone was calling, and then I talked to. So it's a good way to keep in touch with everybody. So then when I got back, and then I saw Twitter, I actually joined Twitter because I thought it was a great way to get instant news. You know what I
Even back
mean?
then, you thought that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Even back that initially,
Okay.
that's what I thought. I said, "Oh, this is great. I don't have to spend my time going to all these different
Yeah.
websites.
Yep.
I'll just scroll through Twitter. I'll get the CNN, the sports, everything. I'll get everything in one spot, so I don't have to go to these different websites to do it. And then after that, that's when I started seeing the crazies, man. You know, started seeing the crazies. A high school classmate of mine, who actually I had known since elementary school, posted that Obama was going to implement martial law in there wasn't going to be an election, and he was going to institute martial law. I told y'all this was going to happen.
Was this 2012?
Yep, this was
Yeah, because
2012.
I remember these posts.
Right. And I said, holy bleep.
You could say it,
I
sir,
won't
if
I
you may
won't
not
say his
want
name.
to,
Yeah,
but you can say it.
okay. All right. So I said, holy shit. I won't say his name, but he is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I just started seeing all this crazy stuff. And I would ask my wife, I would say, honey, has it always been like this? Because I got to tell you, I've never been exposed to people like this before.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't. I have not been exposed to people that think. I said, do everyone think this way? And she said, oh, not the people I've been around, but apparently they've all been out there, Eric.
Oh yeah.
And now they have a platform to spew.
Yeah, well, and honestly, what I think, sir, is because you said 2009, and I remember because that's kind of when I signed up, and it took forever to get any type of traction because Twitter was still very small. Like
Yeah.
it definitely didn't take off instantly. I remember being in the UCF library Central Florida Library when I was studying for my undergrad. Like, I don't think this site's gonna make it because I mean we had been in like it's like
Yeah.
it had been like 3 years at this point, and there was still I still remember like ESPN showcasing Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco, right? Because he was like the
Okay.
at the
Something's
time.
happening. Okay.
Oh, we lost the sir. We'll wait till he comes back on. Um, and I'll kind of tell him, or I'll tell this story while he comes back on, is that I remember Chad Ochocinco being the most popular athlete at the time on Twitter. And he was the most popular athlete because he had, I think, like 80,000 followers, which, in 2009, that was a huge numbering, right? And for it to be only 80,000, I just thought, wow, I mean, if 80,000 people are following this pro NFL football player, how big is Twitter? And Colonel
Okay.
Colonel Sellers is back. So what I was saying, sir, in your absence there, is I just remember Chad Ochocinco Johnson was like the most famous, or he was the biggest athlete on Twitter at the time. And he had like 80,000 followers. And I just remember saying, like, 80,000 people, you know, we're talking about the NFL, right? Like, I mean, this is a league that gets, 15 million to watch the worst teams you could think of on a Sunday, 15 million to watch. So I was just like, all right. And then I think Shaq was another one they profiled, and he only had like 40,000 at the time. And I'm like, Shaquille O'Neal, only 40,000 people know who this dude. Come on. I honestly didn't think Twitter was going to make it, but obviously it did. It took off, and I think it was in large part, and I'll say this, you may agree or disagree, but I think it was what kind of started to propel Twitter was the Tea Party movement in 2010. Because it was cable. Cable was kind of like, it wasn't necessarily the cable news thing. I think Fox, CNN, MSNBC, they've all kind of been charging forward around that time. But when they were forced to kind of pay attention to the Tea Party movement, it brought them all onto that same page, and it started propelling social media.
Well, that's that time. Right. And I was about to say, I really do think it's, I think politics is what made Twitter.
Yep.
Right. Politics is what made it evolve or devolve.
Maybe right on both.
Right. Into what it is right now.
And I really think the way it is today is, it kind of goes back to what you said. It's like, it doesn't even, it's no longer the crazies saying things that go unchecked. Like, it's like, these are official verified accounts in all media, sports media, whatever, entertainment, it doesn't matter. They're all saying this stuff.
Yep.
And there is no fact check. There's nothing. It's all for likes and retweets, and it happens instantly. Yep. And it spreads that. And it kind of goes back to, you said your wife's, and this is what I think. I think like your wife. Your wife said, not the people I hang around with, right?
Right.
And this is where this is what I think. Because if I went on Twitter right now and I just put in a topic, let me just search for it. Let me see what I can find. A lot of crazy shit about anything.
Yep.
Everything. Yep. Stuff that I know is verifiably false because I live it.
Yes.
Or whatever, right?
Right.
And if I close that app and I go outside and I just start hanging out with my neighbors, or if I go to the store, if I go wherever I can still go in California that's open, it ain't Twitter, man. It ain't that bad. Even these protests, like, I've been in Napa when some of these protests are going on, super peaceful and chill. I've been in Fairfield, where I live. They did crash a truck through the Best Buy fucking entrance and try to, But if I go talk to any of these people, someone at my gym, she's been to 5 of the Black Lives Matter protests. One of the nicest, kindest persons I've ever met. I talked to her about this stuff. We have normal conversations. I don't think people realize you can still go out with your neighbors, anybody in your community, and have a normal conversation. But if you get on Twitter, civility is removed, and everyone just tries to go at each other, and it's all about who. It's not even about reacting, it's just pretending or posturing that you're right.
Posturing that you're right. Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. It's kind of like, what did they call alcohol? The false courage, or liquid courage.
Liquid courage, but I don't know, sir. I mean, this is liquid gold.
Well, you know what? I had intended to have a glass of cognac here with me, and I forgot to go get it before we started.
That's fine. Cognac is French. We're not worried about that, sir. No. No, I think I like I said, I agree with your wife, and I've said this to my family. Fortunately, most of my family avoids social media at this point. My immediate family, I have some that are way too far involved in it, but most of I think Facebook is still the rabbit hole that you don't want to go down. I learned my lesson the hard way. I learned after 2016, like, don't talk about anything with it. Because here's what I think about. So, sir, let me know if you agree. Facebook is Twitter, but with your friends and family.
Yes.
See, at least
Yes.
Twitter is a bunch of people you don't know.
People I don't know, right? But I got to tell you, because I made one comment on Facebook of the political nature. It was in response to something stupid or crazy someone said. And one of my former high school classmates, and you have to understand, these are people I haven't seen since 1982.
Yep, I see him.
Right. I haven't seen, and he jumps in and he responds, and then I got a little pissed and I responded back. I didn't call him stupid, but I just disagreed with him. And then his response was, "Bye, Theo," and he unfriended me. And I said, after that, I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm not going to make any political comments at all over Facebook. In fact, I've come very close to just deleting my account.
Yeah.
I've many times, in fact, but the only reason that I maintained it is because it's the best way for me to I can keep track of what my nephews and nieces in South Carolina are doing. And I even have to talk to them about about Facebook. You don't need to post on Facebook that you and your wife got into an argument, or you and your boyfriend got into an argument. You probably shouldn't post on Facebook that you're going out of town. I tell my sister this all the time, from this date to this date.
Basic OPSEC, right?
Basic OPSEC stuff. But I think, Facebook it is way worse than Twitter. And I think you captured it. You captured it perfectly.
I think that the only reason I never had Facebook, I refused. Like, I thought, you remember MySpace, right?
Yeah. Now I never did MySpace.
Okay, so you didn't do MySpace. I did MySpace, and then I remember getting rid of that because I knew Facebook was kind of the logical progression, and I just, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I wasn't into it. And then I finally got Facebook on my last deployment because it was kind of like what you said. It's just the easiest way to keep in touch with family, etc. And I think Instagram was coming on around at that time, and Instagram has evolved from just, hey, post a picture, to now you post video. Like it's a whole other. It's like Twitter but with videos, right?
Right.
And then we did Vine for a while, which is kind of, now there's TikTok, which I refuse to partake in. I won't do it. But I think the thing with Facebook is, like I said, I learned from the 2016 election, because I would take the same things I said on Twitter and I would go even further into them on Facebook. And I was just like, I had this urge inside me, like I had to prove people wrong. And then I finally realized, like, you cannot. And I realized, and I don't remember, it was definitely probably 2017, 2018 maybe, but I think it was 2017, where I just realized, what's the point?
Right.
Like, what's the point? Because no one, and I think you said this too, is like, we're in social media era where no one is going to give up any ground. It's just not, we're all just dug in on our side, whatever it is. And people don't have conversations like you and I are having anymore. Or I think they do. We're a little bit limited because of what we can do in our respective states right now with the coronavirus. Right. But no one has a rational conversation or discussion on social media. No one does. And if you do, you're something's wrong with you.
Right. So it just kind of, it goes to this cancel culture stuff.
Yep.
That we're in. And it's on, I hate to use the term both sides, but it is. So Absolutely. If you're a Republican and you don't conform exactly to these points, or if you criticize anyone, then you're a rhino.
Right.
Then, then on the left, if you don't conform exactly to this, then, well, you're a neoliberal, or you're a sellout, or you're a fake, or whatever. So it's ridiculous.
And so double cough there. I like that. So this is what I kind of wanted to Okay. So I'm going to try and take 2020 in a chronological order, right? So we've got,
Okay.
when did you first think, all right, what the hell's going on with the damn coronavirus? Do you remember? Like, did you take it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because my wife is in the public health business. In fact, she works at the health center on post,
Mhm.
Fort Eustis. Okay, so obviously we all didn't have a lot of information initially on it,
Yep.
but when the numbers started increasing. When I saw the numbers of deaths started doubling, then I'll say, okay, well, this appears to be a little serious. And even in February and March, I remember, in fact, it was in late February. Uh, I work on post, so I went to the commissary and got all this disinfectant stuff and put it in my cubicle at work to make sure I was wiping everything down. And it just, even though, we had, again, certain people saying, well, it's not that serious, it's going to go away, and it looked like it wasn't going to go away. So, as you know, with the military, the military always sides, kind of sides on caution when it comes to this type of stuff. So they started telling us in early March, you guys need to start preparing to work from home. And that's when I knew. I said, okay, well, the shit is serious now.
Right.
And just talking with my wife every day, what was going on at the health center. So when we left, I think my last day in the building, I think was March 17th. That's when I knew it was very, very serious.
Have you been back to work since?
Nope.
Wow. So March 17th, here it is.
Yeah, March 17th. I had to go back one day to go into the shipper room because some of the work I do is on shipper.
Right.
But other than
Secure,
that,
folks. That's what the S
yeah,
means.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But other than that, Eric, I haven't been back, and they don't know when we're going back.
Yeah, and I don't even want to get into the stuff that I'm going through with my line of work, because along the lines, some of the stuff that what you're doing, but things have shifted. So,
Right.
Have you known anybody to be impacted by it?
Actually, my wife has had, I think, 2 family members. My wife she grew up in New York.
Okay.
And so she has family up in New York and in the Connecticut. And she's had 2 family members die from it.
Okay.
And my mother told me the other day when I spoke with her that one of my aunts and her son and his wife tested positive. They all live in the same house. And another close family friend tested positive a couple months ago, but she's fully recovered now. And my sister is a nurse. She works in a hospital in Charleston, and they now are going on 24-hour ops, and she's being moved to care for the core COVID patients. So,
yeah. So my mom's a nurse as well, and I've tried to defer to her on pretty much all of this since kind of the timeline you laid out.
right.
I'm not going to pretend to know stuff. I do know, without getting tested and confirmed, that I definitely had it back in March.
Really?
Oh yeah, my sense of smell, my taste.
Wow.
I just remember it. Oh yeah, and I don't put any of this stuff out publicly. Well, I don't tweet it,
Right.
but I'll talk about it here and whatever.
Right. Okay.
So I know. I remember being out on my grill, and I love to grill and sip my bourbon because whatever it is, it's heat, fire, something just makes it taste better, right? It amplifies or enhances the flavor. And I remember being out there and I'm just like, I'm sitting there grilling and I'm looking at this glass like I'm looking at it right now, sir. And I'm like, is this water? Because I don't taste anything. And then I think I was grilling steak at that time. I ate it, didn't taste a single bit of it. Nothing. I didn't taste anything. I didn't taste anything for 6 days. And I remember after like day 4, I was starting to get very frustrated, for a lack of a better word, because things were very fluid with the testing and what they were, what symptoms they said you had to display in order to get tested, and sense of smell and taste loss wasn't one of the ones that they were authorizing at the time. So I was just like, whatever, because I didn't have any of the other ones. I didn't have shortness of breath. I didn't cough. I didn't get tired. I was still working out just as intensely as I always do.
I know. I was about to say you posted all those damn workouts.
Nothing changed. I didn't feel worse. Nothing. Like the only thing that I noticed and disappeared was my sense of smell and taste.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, about a week and it returned. And I can pretty much kind of, because like I said, I'm in the Bay Area. I remember I went to a San Francisco Giants season ticket event at the Giants Stadium in San Francisco at the end of February. And I drove up to Oregon the first few weeks of February as well. So at some point, that's kind of when I feel like I got it. Now my girl was completely different, and she has a history of like asthma, pneumonia, all this stuff. So she was bad for like 2 weeks, and she couldn't get tested either. Because again, aside from some of her symptoms, it wasn't what everyone was looking for to get tested, but she was pretty rough for about 2.5 weeks, and she's recovered. I've recovered. My parents both recently got it confirmed, got tested, had it. You know, dad's 71, mom's 65. They're fine now. And it kind of brings me back to my original point is I don't think we know how it reacts. Now, I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying that we just don't know what it's going to do to the individual.
Right. I agree 100%. I think, obviously everybody's body is different. Everyone has different underlying health issues.
Yep.
Whatever that might be, type 2 or whatever it is. So I think it's going to affect everybody a little bit differently. And also I just think it's the situation's evolving. The scientists, they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, it's kind of trial and error.
It's trial and error. So, but I also, there's a very large part of me, and I'm not trying to get too far into tinfoil hat territory, but I also feel like there's a large part of me that is thinking, with everything we deal with as just as a species for humans. I mean, we deal with this every year with the flu virus. It's never going to go away. We're always going to have a different strain. We have a vaccine, right? Is this going to be that next thing to where it's just here and we have a virus with a vaccine that we take annually because we know it's going to move and shift or whatever? And when I say that, it's like I said, it's not to get conspiratorial. It's just like, we definitely can't shut the economy down every time something like this happens, I don't think. Because President Obama didn't do that.
Right. Well, you certainly can't shut it down forever, and I understand that. And I do agree with you that it's not going to go away. We're just going to be able to, to vaccinate people and to deal with it, just like the flu never went away, so on and so forth. So, but I do think, though, in the meantime, me personally, I just don't see how it's such a huge infringement on your freedom to put on a mask in public.
No, I'm with you there. I'm fine with it. I mean, if we got to wear a mask, great. My only thing is, because California, where I live, just recently shut down a lot of stuff again. The gym,
right.
They closed again, and I'm like, look, if you want us to wear a mask, fine, I got it. I'll do that. I'm cool with it. I'm all about looking out for my fellow man. But at what point does that, like, the economy is not your, like, you think about these things that we take advantage of or we take for granted of on our daily basis, right? Whether it's going to a restaurant, a bar, anything, a hair salon, the gym, all these things, these are not billionaires or millionaires. This is our backbone of our economy, right? We use that term backbone.
Right. Right.
That's who's being
Well,
mostly
small
affected by
businesses,
this.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
small
Small
business.
businesses, absolutely. I know, but I would propose to you, though, Eric, that if in the beginning, if everyone had done what we were supposed to do and we had taken our medicine then and sucked it up, maybe we wouldn't have to reshut down businesses and that sort of thing again in places like California and Texas. Again, is it going to ruin your life if you can't go to the beach for one flipping
Mm-hmm.
year, that you can't? That's just what it's hard for me. I just don't understand it.
Well,
I
so
just don't.
right, and so to that, I would say, and this is a big thing in our world at one point, coming from your military planning side, is we get second and third order effects, right?
Right.
You say the beach, and I got it. But think about all those second and third order effects, all those other parts of the economy and those people and those businesses
I got it.
that rely on people coming to the
I
beach.
got
And
it.
that's what
I got it.
because it's not, look, I get it. And it sucks because, look, man, I'm in Bay Area in California. My girl's in Napa.
Right.
I'm moving to Napa.
Right.
Like there's so much out
Right.
here that we can't currently do. And I got that, but those people exist because of those desires.
I
right?
agree.
And
I agree. I understand, Eric. Trust me. I understand. You know, the the businesses that's impacted the most are certainly the small businesses,
mm,
and I feel for them. I really do, because that's their livelihood.
yep.
That's how they make an honest living. But you know, again, I don't see any way around it. And again, if I think, and again, even with the local businesses, you still have people walking around that refuse to wear a flipping mask. You have young people that's having COVID parties
Yeah.
to see if they're gonna get COVID.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.
And I've seen
And
it
I
too.
think what people don't understand, well, the average person in our citizenry is that we do live in a free and open society, but freedom ain't free.
No, there's the societal contract, right? I mean, there's the social
Right.
contract. You give up
Right.
certain things to living in
Right.
an organized society. Yeah, I got that.
Right.
No, I mean the same thing. Like this was probably, man, we're almost going on 2 months at this point. But I remember going into a grocery store in Napa, and I was walking in. I put my mask on. The guy in front of me, uh, he didn't put a mask on. He walks in, and the poor little fucking grocery store employee, she's just like, "Excuse me, sir, you need to put a mask on." He's like, "No, I don't." And she's like, "Well, in order to come in," he's like, "No, I don't." And he kept walking. I'm just like, I mean, come on,
See,
what are
right.
we doing? Like that,
Right.
right? And I
Right.
got it. I get it. But I just worry, sir, about the long-term effect on the economy because we can't stimulus check our way out of this. We
I
can't do any of
agree.
that stuff. I mean,
No, I agree.
we're the United States of America. We're the world's largest
Right.
economy, and in order for us to maintain that or be that, we have to, for the lack of a better word, we have to do our jobs.
Right.
You know?
But it has to be a collective effort, Eric.
Yep.
I
And
mean,
I'm fortunate. I'm like, me, I get paid twice a month. I'm fine.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm not concerned about me. I'm concerned about everyone else.
I'm with you 100%. My brother has a pest control business. in South Carolina that he has had for what 20 plus years
No.
that he's run, and
Mm.
he's been hit hard as well. He was, he wasn't able to get the, the loan
Oh, the
with the
PPP,
first,
yeah,
right,
PPP program.
right, that
Okay.
thing. They ended up telling him, sorry, it's all gone. But I think with the second go round, he was able to get some support. But he's been hit hard. So I know personally what's going on, and I agree with you. But it has to be a collective effort. If our healthcare professionals are telling us, well, between now and September, 45,000 lives can be saved if everyone wears a mask when they're outside, then why can't you do it?
No, I'm
Why
with you.
don't you
Look,
do it?
yeah, no, I like I said, my biggest frustration with myself at this time, as my daughter will tell you, is every time we go somewhere, I always get out of the truck and I forget to grab my mask. She's like, Dad, get your mask. I'm like, "Ugh," and I'm walking back to the truck to get my mask. That's my
Yeah,
biggest thing, but I always do it. But I always,
right,
it's because I'm so, second nature is just to get out and go do whatever the hell
right,
you gotta go do.
right.
So I mean, we've hit on all that. And the big thing I really wanted to get your take on is because, over Memorial Day, George Floyd was murdered, as we all know.
Yep,
And that kind of lit, I think, the fuse of the bomb that was just already there. You talked about mines early on and what you were doing. Like, the mine is there.
right.
We finally, as a nation, stepped on it.
Yep.
And I don't know if it was just a matter of, it was the perfect timing. It was the culmination of everything with the coronavirus feeding into that, people's frustrations, not having anything else to do, out of work. But it definitely lit the fuse in this country, and we saw what took place after that. And I just honestly, because I've said this to you before in our before we started going on here, is you have lived a very different life than me. You have a very different perspective. People look at you differently than they look at me. That's just the reality of the world. So I want to know from your perspective what your take on all of that was, from if you saw the video of George Floyd and what was going on, and then everything after it.
Yes, I did see the video. Um, I watched it several times. Uh, I thought it was horrific what they did. Um, I do feel that he was murdered. Um, I can't say that in that uh, police police officer's mind that was his intent
Right.
to do that. That he intended to do that, but certainly his actions, that was the end result of his actions.
Yep.
Um, I heard someone, I think it was today or maybe yesterday, someone on some news show I was listening to said it was kind of like the Emmett Till moment. It's the 2020 version of the Emmett Till moment. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't either.
But
I feel like that's
right,
hyperbole. Like,
right, it is. But I think it's a combination of, you know, just the totality of things that's been going on the last couple of years, at least things that's been captured on video.
yeah.
Um, I do feel that, I don't believe that all police or law enforcement officers are bad. I have family members that are law
Yep. Same.
enforcement officers. In fact, in my younger years, they helped me get out of a speeding ticket. So I don't believe that, Eric. But what I do believe, though, is that collectively, as a community, law enforcement needs to go. There needs to be a culture change.
Oh, I agree.
Okay, and I liken it to, from the time I came on active duty in November 18th, 1986, the Army went through a continual culture change. We went from the Army being dominated by the Vietnam era soldiers, where you could have either one shot of what you had during lunch for 2 beers to
I've heard about this, and
to
I'm a little
yeah
envious.
yeah yeah to at 16:30 on Friday, your duty station, your place of duty, I should say, was at the officers club, throwing them back, and then getting in your car and driving home, which is no longer acceptable, and which is why most club systems now on military posts are non-existent.
Yeah, it's a
To
formality.
right. So, but my point is, the military's went through a culture. We're still going through a culture change,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that collectively, law enforcement agencies, particularly at the local levels, they need to go through a culture change. I just do.
And you know
And
what?
I don't think everyone is cut out to be a law enforcement officer. Just like
Um,
a lot of folks aren't cut out to be soldiers.
I agree with that 100%. And I really wanted to get your take on this because I feel very strongly about this next point. And you touched on it that there needs to be a cultural change within law enforcement. I feel like police brutality is ignored unless it involves a Black American. But before I get your take on this, police brutality is a societal issue. It is prevalent. It happens every day. It involves every American. It doesn't just involve Black Americans. And if the media reported every instance of it, we wouldn't have had a George Floyd reaction, I don't think. We would have fixed it a long time ago, and George Floyd to this day may still be alive because we wouldn't, as a society, tolerated our law enforcement officers doing the things that they do. Because it absolutely appalls me when I see these law enforcement officers driving around in fucking MRAPs like they're going
Yeah.
to do a route clearance operation in
Yeah,
Afghanistan.
yeah, yeah.
That is my biggest issue because, like you, I have family members in law enforcement. I have really good friends in law enforcement, and I know what their hearts are and I know where they are. However, we do not need to have in this society our police officers looking like they are going to war with the public. That is not their role. That is not how anybody intended them to ever be. And I feel like the media perpetuates this problem because if we would have just realized that this has been going on for far too long with every American, not just the Black Americans in this country who are, obviously targeted at a higher rate. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the community and the demographic and the the economic issue more than anything, because that's where law enforcement focuses their time and efforts. And what do you know? More shit happens in that area when you have that much more focus taking place. But if we would just highlight the fact that it is a societal issue, I think George Floyd would be alive because we as Americans would have solved this fucking problem sooner.
I think you have a very valid point. I
And I
certainly I
apologize
think it
getting a
gets
little passionate,
no, no,
but
no, no, no. That's fine. That's fine. I agree with you that I'm sure that there are police brutality do happen to folks other than black people, and you're right. There should be a bigger microscope put on it because, again, like you said, if it was, and then obviously the citizenry is not going to accept it, it would have been fixed a long time ago. Now, in terms of the MRAPs and that type of stuff, I do agree with you to a certain extent, but I do believe police departments in large metropolitan areas like New York and Chicago and LA, those cities that would be considered targets for terrorist attacks, they should have some type of tactical unit to be able to deal with that type of situation. But again, I don't think that every police department, I agree with you. Uh, the police department I think it was in that town in St. Louis, I don't think they need to have MRAPs
No, I
in
don't. Yeah.
guys in Kevlar and that type of thing.
Mm.
I do agree 100% with you. Certainly, I think there's a training issue
Oh yeah.
um, with law enforcement in terms of how to de-escalate a situation. And the one of the cops that's being, or the primary guy that's being charged with second-degree murder. I did read an article yesterday from that involved three guys that encountered him when they were 18 and they were just doing some dumb teenager shit. I think
Mm.
they were seniors in high school, so they were 17, and so they kind of recounted how the guy treated them, and they were all white. So which
Mm.
is to prove your point.
Yep. Yeah. But and
So
I just think that until we highlight it and the media highlights it, that this is not just only happening to Black Americans, because it's not. It's happening to everybody. It's happening to Americans.
right, but again, Eric, part of the problem is the culture within these law enforcement uh, um, departments. You know, what do they call it? The blue shield or some shit where
The blue
cops don't
line.
snitch. The blue
Yeah.
line where cops don't snitch. Now they want
Right.
you and me to snitch, but they won't snitch.
Right.
Now in the military, if you see a senior NCO or an officer abusing a soldier, what are you going to do?
Well, in that moment, I'm going to fix it, or I'm going to get somebody who can.
Thank you.
Right.
Exactly.
And generally, it's you're going to
Are
get
you
somebody who can fix it.
exactly. So are you going to say, well, I'm not going to snitch. I'm not going to snitch on him.
Right.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And again, that's part of the problem where, the police unions will go to no end to support an officer, whether he's right or wrong.
Yeah.
So, I think part of it is they have to clean up, they have to start cleaning up from the inside as well.
It's a
And that's
cultural
what,
thing. And
yep.
but my thing is, I cannot stand every time I see a picture or an image or a video or something like these police officers dressed up like they're fucking special operators.
I know.
It annoys the fuck out of me. It really does, because that's not the image that we need to portray to our, like, you're
right.
not at war with your community. You're there to
Right.
police and law and keep.
And which leads me to my other point is we've gotten as a nation, as a society, collectively away from the community policemen, the local policemen,
Yes.
where the guys aren't always in their squad cars. They're out there in the community, getting to know the people, establishing personal relationships with these people, versus going out in full kit, just like you said, like they're a soldier, and trying to do a police work. It's just not going to work. It's intimidating. First of all,
yeah, absolutely.
it's it really is. It's intimidating. If I was them, I'd be intimidated too.
Yeah. And what I think part of the problem is the pay. So let me give you 3 examples of this, because I didn't see this until I came out to California. So if I was in Orlando, where I came from, I remember seeing all the Orlando Police Department flyers and all their hiring stuff. They would start out at a salary, to what I know, to be very, I wouldn't even say average. And then you factor in overtime, you finally get to average. Yep. Okay, you can live in a decent area, right? I looked into New York City Police Department, and their starting salary for the police department officers in New York. You can't live anywhere in New York City,
right,
with the police department salary.
Right.
You just can't.
Right.
And I come out here to California. The first place I was stationed, I became a recruiter in Roseville, California. Never heard of it, right? Beautiful subdivision, or I don't want to say subdivision. Beautiful suburbs north of Sacramento.
Hmm.
You know what they hire at for the starting police department in Roseville, California?
What?
About 82,000.
Are you serious?
Rockland, the town I actually lived in for most of the time I was a recruiter in Roseville, 79.
Wow.
What
Not
I
bad.
noticed about those, number one, those neighborhoods and where I'm talking about, beautiful family areas, perfect. But
Right.
you can afford to live in that community. Now, those
Right.
communities were affluent. Don't get me wrong. These are not. I'm not talking about like cheap neighborhoods, but with
Right.
the salary they were offering, man, we're not even talking about overtime, which is always affordable or not affordable, always available.
Right.
You were able to you could live in your community in those two examples I given you. You can't do it in New York. You can't really do it in Orlando. And so that's where I feel the issue is, because a lot of these police officers, you brought up the community aspect, a lot of these officers can't afford to live in some of the better neighborhoods. But then
Right.
also, let's be real, some of the areas they're charged with policing, do they really want to live in them?
No. And
And
Theo
that's
doesn't want to live in them either.
exactly, yes, you nailed it. And so what do these officers think when they go into those areas? They think the worst of the people who live there, right?
Right.
We're
Right.
guilty of this in Iraq and Afghanistan, man. We go
Yep.
into a certain
Yep.
town, right? We
Yep.
expect the worst, and we think the people
Yep.
all have our worst interest at heart.
Yep. And
And it's
that's
not true.
something I always battled uh, with my guys, trying to, it was unacceptable to refer to them as ragheads. It was unacceptable to refer to them as animals and all these different things and, some other things I won't say that I've heard people say. But you're absolutely right. Policemen are underpaid, particularly at the local level. I agree with you. Just like teachers,
Oh,
in
yeah,
my
yeah.
opinion, are
Yeah,
underpaid.
absolutely.
So anyone that wants to have a comfortable life, earn a good, earn a good living, so they can take care of their family. They're not going to want to be a law enforcement officer. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to want to go try to do something else, just like with the teachers. So you kind of get what you pay for,
Yep.
as it were. So you're right. That is another problem. I agree with you. And to be honest with you, too, I think it was in 19. I think it was in 19. It was when Carter was president. He initially doubled the pay of officers and enlisted men, because
Right. Yeah.
again, and they did that to attract better quality of
Yeah.
people wanting to join the military. So you're spot on. I agree with you 100%.
And I hate to say it, but it's the reality of anything in just in our society is like you want to entice people to do a certain job, you have to compensate them accordingly,
Yep.
right? Because
Yep.
no one does anything for free.
Right. And that's something I've learned, Eric, being here in the civilian world. Um, that the better, and just keep this in mind, the better companies or the better firms, um, they pay their employees well. They pay them so they can maintain them, so they won't go
Mhm.
looking for a better gig someone
Right.
else. So the quality companies, that is what they do.
I mean, but also to be fair, I do this podcast for free, so there's that. If
I
I can get a
got you.
bourbon sponsorship out of this with Buffalo Trace, it'd be great because it literally
Well,
every
Eric,
episode I'm drinking something that they make. But anyway,
well,
that's
brother, I think if you send them a little text message or send them an
something.
email and a clip, because I'm telling you, during my first deployment, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, I sent. We didn't have email back then, so I wrote a letter to Anita Baker's fan mail club,
What?
and she sent me an autographed picture.
That's
I'm not
funny.
kidding you. I'm
That's
not
funny.
kidding you. And so a lot of the guys, that's what we were doing. We said, hey, we want to get this. Let's send them
Yeah.
a letter and try to get something. So send them a message. I'm telling you, send them a
You're right.
message.
Well, we need to get the audience a little bigger at this point. Hopefully
Yeah.
you'll be able to propel me to that level, and
Well,
I can use you for my benefit, sir. That's
and I encourage you to do that. But to be honest with you, Eric, I did not know you had a podcast until last week. But
I mean, it's not much older than a month, so you're not
okay. But I subscribe.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. And if you are out there listening, you should subscribe to There Will Be Bourbon on YouTube. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on
Apple
Spotify.
Podcast.
If you're a Transistor guy, there's so many places to host it. Just, look it up. You'll find it. All right, let's get a little lighthearted here. We've dealt with the heavy stuff.
Okay.
Sports is coming back, right?
Yep.
Finally. Now, in your mind, before I get into the NBA and Major League Baseball coming back within the next 2 weeks, do you think we're going to have football season? Not NFL. Do you think we're going to have college football? Because I think that's where the most contention is right now.
I think maybe the heavy hitters like the SEC and those folks are going to play games. But I can tell you, the MEAC, where my college, the conference, it's Division II, they've already canceled all fall sports. So I think that all fall sports.
Where do you come out on that? Do you think that's realistic? Do you think it's reactionary? Like,
I think it's realistic from the standpoint that, if you have a school, if you have a program that's not going to be able to financially support or handle, all the protocols you need to put in place to host a safe event, then to me, it's just not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Now, I feel for the seniors, just like, when they canceled the NCAA tournament.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Earlier this year. But as I tell my wife, I know a lot of people that made a lot of sacrifices, that missed a lot of first time or once in a lifetime events, the birth of their first child, graduations, couldn't be there at a parent's deathbed. So to me, I don't think it's too much to ask.
That's fair. That's a very fair correlation. But you did say, though, you do think, and I know you said the SEC, but I think if we're going to say the SEC, we're going to say Division I schools are going to play.
Well, and I think I think Division I right now, I think their plan is to only play, they're just going to play the conference games. So I think they're going to be able to make it. I think they're going to be able to make it happen.
That's cool, because I got $100 bet with somebody that college football gets played. So I just need one game to kick off and I'm golden.
Yeah.
So
they're going to play. And then I think they're going to start. And then I think they'll play it by ear after that. So that, they'll have from September to December. How many conference games is it? 7?
At least.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So they can spread them out over that time period, and they'll probably do stuff where,
I mean, we'd rather see that anyway, right? Do you really need to see Alabama play Southeast Directional State Community
or the
College?
Citadel? Yeah. Right, exactly.
Alabama playing a bunch of Army guys. That's fair.
Right. So I think they're gonna be. It's just too much money in it.
Yeah,
no,
I agree, and that's why, I think the NFL is definitely playing. Some teams have already said that they won't have fans. I am totally banking on the Bears having fans, because I already bought tickets for October 8th, right? Week 5, Thursday Night Football. Tom Brady comes into town into Chicago. I got 2 tickets for me and my dad. My dad's never been to Soldier Field, so they need to let us the fuck in, or else I'm gonna start. I'm gonna come up with I'm gonna figure out a way into that stadium. Well, okay, I won't. I don't know what I'm talking.
And I think out of all the leagues, the sport leagues, to be honest with you, I think the NFL is probably the most smartly run of all the other ones. And you got a lot of smart guys in the NFL.
I agree.
So so I think they'll figure out a way to get it done.
Speaking of the leagues, okay, so we know the two that are coming up. Major League Baseball kicks off, or I don't know, pitches off on July 23rd, whatever the hell you want to call it. But then the NBA is coming back at the end of the month. And then so the NBA is doing this thing with I don't know how far you've kept up with it, but the messaging on the back of the jersey.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
I mean, but I feel like LeBron James is like, and I'm usually very critical of him because I just, I don't think he's as informed as he purports himself to be. But in this instance, I'm on his side. I feel like he said, there's no point in me putting anything on the back of my jersey. I'm going to put my name because A, I wasn't consulted, and B, like, it doesn't speak to what I do anyway. And I think, like, this is my thing. So let me speak as a white man, right?
Okay.
Which is probably the majority of NBA fans because we're still the majority of people in this country, right?
Yep.
So the majority of people that are going to tune in to watch NBA basketball pick back up are going to be people who look like my shade. And I got to agree with LeBron in this instance. It's that, do I really need to see something on the back of an NBA player's jersey to know what the hell is going on in this country? I don't. And and so before I bring you in, and the reason I side with LeBron James is like, what LeBron puts on the back of his jersey has nothing to do with what the man does off the court. That's what's important. Right. I think even Kawhi Leonard said that. It's like, it's about the actions. Because he's doing the same thing. I don't think he's putting anything on the back.
Right.
But we don't need that. We just need to see sports played in this country, and it'll start, the gradual bringing us back as a society when it comes back to communicating and talking about sports. We don't need to see because I don't know if it's politicization, but I think too much is placed and too much attention is placed on the back of the jersey and not what these players do in their communities. Which is what's important.
Right. I agree with you 100% because I think I saw one of your tweets where you where the official NBA site you couldn't
order a Hong Kong jersey.
You can't read it. You can't order a free Hong Kong jersey, but you can order a fuck the police jersey.
Exactly.
See, so which doesn't make any sense. And again, I would say that to a certain extent, the NBA's heart is in the right place in this. Mm-hmm. But there's just certain things you can't do because there's always going to be somebody.
There's always one, right?
There's always one person that's going to go to the extreme, and that's going to fuck it up for everybody.
Yep.
And it's just like with this with this bubble thing with them. Mm-hmm. And I told my buddy, I said, now, somebody's going to fuck it up.
They already are. They're already doing it.
And they're already doing it. Exactly. You see, and that's my point. I just think, I just think at this point, they're just going too far. They're just trying to be a little too woke.
Yep.
I agree with you. They don't need to put a damn message on the back of their jersey. And just like you said, your actions speak a hell of a lot more than something on the back of your damn jersey.
You know what?
And I just agree with you.
It speaks to what you said. You said the NFL is ran by smarter people. And I don't know this. If it's true, someone hopefully in the comments will tell me, unless you know yourself. But, the NFL has the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, right? Where they highlight a player on every team, not just the league, but every team who is like, they're identified for being for all their actions they do within the community. They're kind of selected to win that award. I don't know if the NBA doing that. And I think that would speak more, and it would say more than just, let me put a fucking slogan on the back of my jersey and hope, I score and that the announcers call my, back of my jersey name.
Right.
Because there's no fans there anyway, so they're not going to see it. And I think that's what the NBA misses is, the games will be televised, but I just think like Jason Whitlock talked about this. He says actions over gestures, I think is his slogan at the moment, or jobs over gestures, something to that effect. But I think where he's coming from is right in that we're trying so hard to show support, allegiance, whatever it is, with these slogans or these, social media posts or whatever. And we're ignoring what people actually do in their community. Like, why don't we highlight that
Right.
instead of worrying about what the hell LeBron James is going to wear on his jersey when the NBA kicks back off? Because that's not important.
Right.
How about the
Right.
fact that LeBron James, whether you agree with the man or not, or how he did it or why he did it, the dude started a school 2 years ago.
School.
A fucking
Exactly.
school. Like, what did you do
Exactly.
today? Nothing, right?
Right.
You didn't do anything except get mad on
Right.
social media about what LeBron James is doing.
Right.
And
Right.
trust me, I give the man a ton of heat because there's a lot of things I don't agree with. But at the same time, he is one individual, one athlete who definitely puts his money where his mouth is off
Well,
the
he
court.
puts right. He puts back into the community that he came from, and that was and I recall in college that was something that they used to try to instill in us as we were going through. Is you have to, even if you can't give back to the actual community that you grew up in, part of our charge of being educated and so on and so forth is to try to give back to the community. To try to help lift other folks up, versus them staying in the same situation that they're in. So I'm not a huge fan of Jason. I'm not a fan of Jason Whitlock at all. I used to be, but not anymore. But on this, I do agree. He's absolutely right. And again, as you know, Eric, as being a leader of men and women, you have to give them left and right limits.
Yeah.
And you just can't. Well, okay, well, you can just do whatever you want. You just can't do it. I just think it's a bad idea because, like you said, just one person.
It just takes
One person.
It takes
Right.
one.
It just takes one. And then somebody else gonna say, oh, well, since he's doing it, and I'm gonna do it. So then you have dumbass messages on the back of jersey.
Yep.
So no, I agree with you. You're right. You're spot on.
And so did you go to a historical Black community or
Yep.
historical Black college? Okay.
Yep.
So no, that's
Yep.
interesting. So you said that like part of is it the curriculum or is it just the code of?
Well, I wouldn't say a curriculum or code, but a lot of our professors, instructors, they would always talk to us about that sort of thing. Why? And that was part of the importance too of belonging to fraternal organizations, fraternities, and that's why a lot of, at least the Black fraternities, they have what we call graduate chapters, chapters of folks that are, that have since graduated, but they still get together and they do things like my fraternity. Graduate chapters, we have scholarship programs and these different things that we do to give back to communities because we feel we kind of owe it, especially somebody that came up in an environment. We may have not, my family maybe wasn't below the poverty line, but we were damn near,
Damn
we could
close.
see it. Yeah,
To see it.
we were damn
Yeah.
close, so we could see it. That's for sure. So, just from that aspect. So you're absolutely right. It's not about what you have on the shirt. It's about what you do.
So
And then always too, just necessarily throwing money at something, just because it's easy to write a check either is not always necessarily the answer as well.
So I'm just curious because you highlighted on that, like your family, you don't come from money, just like I don't.
Nope. Nope. Yeah.
You had an opportunity to go to college. What sparked in you to go to an HBCU? What was that a conscious decision or was it?
No, well, I got to tell you, Eric, at 10, I started taking piano lessons at 9 or 10. And then at 11, I started playing the trumpet.
Okay.
And I actually ended up being very good trumpet player. and I'm trying to be as humble as I can. So it was kind of a foregone conclusion that I was going to go to college. You know, it's just something my mom it was just a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, smart guy, I
And, yeah,
imagine.
right. So I think I was in either ninth or 10th grade in South Carolina State. Like each year they came to Johnson Hager Stadium and they would play a game there.
Okay,
So the band, that's the Citadel Stadium in Charleston.
got it.
So a friend of mine asked me to stay with him for the weekend. So, hey, they're coming here. So you want to go to the game with me? I said, okay, cool. So I spent the night at his house. We went to the game. Well, they brought their band. It's called the Marching 101. And in high school, we were a core style rigid band. Well, this was a HBCU band. And I got to tell you, it was the best thing I had ever seen in my life. And I said to myself, I'm going to that college because I'm going to be on that band. And a good friend of mine who graduated a couple of years ahead of me, he was at South Carolina State and he was on the band. He told the band director about me. They brought me up to audition for a scholarship, got a scholarship. The rest is history.
That's legit. And so how did you end up choosing the Army? What made you want to commission? Or did you enlist first and then commission?
No, here's what happened. At the time, at my school, you had to do either 4 years of phys ed courses or 2 years of ROTC. So my roommate talked me into doing ROTC. So the first day, and we at that time
got him.
Well, at that time, I think we had like 800. We had a cadet corps of 800 cadets, and we commissioned about 105 Black officers per year.
Okay.
So I went out there on the first day, and they made me a squad leader, and I got hooked. I just did.
You were power hungry. That's what it was.
I was power. Yeah, that's what it was. And I was just hooked. I just loved it. I mean, I really did. I loved it.
So
go ahead.
No, I think that's interesting. You said that. So do the HBCUs, do they all have ROTC programs? Do they turn out a lot of this, or is this just your school, or what? Because
at that time, my school in terms of HBCUs at that time was the largest. Again, no other HBCU had an 800 cadet brigade, or anything close to that. At that particular time, nowadays it's much smaller. It's not a brigade; it's battalion. This past spring, they commissioned, I think, 20, that's good compared to some previous years. So the programs have actually fallen off quite a bit, unfortunately. But yeah, at that time, we commissioned more Black officers than any other school in the nation for like a 4 or 5 year span.
So, but do all the HBCUs, to your knowledge, have these ROTC programs?
Well, most do. And I think now, again, with the budget cuts and things, some schools, like for example, students, there's a school named Claflin University that's literally right next door to mine. So their students participate in our ROTC program.
Gotcha, like satellite program. Okay.
Right. Yeah, satellite program. So.
No, I think that honestly, until you said that, I had no idea or didn't even realize that. And I think that's an excellent path to. I don't want to use this word like,
no, go ahead.
Only path, but I think it's an excellent path to success.
Well,
because, I mean,
it is, Eric. I mean, I tell people all the time, the best thing that I ever did in my life, the smartest decision I ever made was to join the military. And no matter where you come from, or no matter what, what your circumstances are, the two, there are some equalizers in life: getting an education
Mm-hmm.
and then getting opportunities. So, going to South Carolina State College helped provide me an education, and then it gave me an opportunity to do several different things. One of those was to join the military. Joining the military, Eric, I've been places that I only thought existed in books when I was
Yep.
growing up. Uh,
Same here.
right. I've made great friends. I've met people all over the world, i.e., you, people that I would not have met otherwise. It's provided me a great life. Um, I love being in the military, man. I never used to say that I'm going to work. I used to say I'm
Yep.
going to the office.
Let's go to the office.
It
Yep.
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't even work to me. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Every aspect of it. Getting up in the morning, PT, training, everything. And I think what they have to realize is sometimes you have to look at what's there and what's the best way to give yourself an opportunity to be better. The military offers that. The post 9/11 GI Bill, it paid for my graduate degrees.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Mine too. What up?
right, right, exactly. So again, you know, you got to pull yourself up, and people, you don't expect a handout. You got to make it happen, plain and simple.
I think that's a great message, and it's probably it took us an hour and 40 some minutes to do it, but that's how I'm going to promote this. I'm going on
Okay.
on everything you said about opportunity, et cetera. But I hope people do. I mean, I feel like we're at a moment in our history, especially with our younger people, that I know they view my recruiters and they view us a little skeptically, but I have a great faith in this next generation coming up, because I think it's going to shift a lot of things in our society, because they are not bound by a lot of the things that you and I were coming up. I don't
Right.
think they adhere to the same um, what's the word? They don't adhere to the same. Why can't I think of this thing? Like
Ethos.
not the
Ethos.
ethos, but when you're like you're committed to something, like they don't adhere to the same commitments or the things.
Commitments. Right.
Yeah, they don't adhere to those things that they're expected to fall into. I think they think a little bit more for themselves, or a little bit more individualistic. They don't try to uh, correspond to labels. They're a little bit more self-determined than I think our generations were. I don't think they're.
Well, I, I I think part of the problem is that, with every generation, you know, they want to make the kids' lives better than what they had, than their
Mm,
lives were. And in some aspects, and I tell my mother this all the time in reference to my nephews and my nieces, I think we gave them too much,
yep.
and I think we made it too easy for them. Um, growing up as a kid, Eric, even on Saturdays, my dad would get my brother and I out of bed at 7 a.m. because,
Get up,
because
there's lawn to be
right.
cut. Let's
No,
go.
seriously. Yeah, seriously. I mean, because he didn't believe in sleeping in. There was no such thing as sleeping in. So I just think, we've made it too easy on them. They don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand, well, if I wanted a new pair of Pro Ked sneakers,
Mm,
I had to go mow like 3 or 4 lawns to get the money to go get those Pro Ked sneakers.
mm,
There wasn't any, well, here you go. Here's $100 or
yeah.
$150 to go buy a pair of sneakers. That's crazy to me. So I just think that's part of the problem, and I think that we just have to instill in them from a young age, have to instill a work ethic, why it's important, and you know, and emphasize like education. That's important, and instill a work ethic in them. And I think we're failing them if we don't do that.
And I think you're going to be very surprised with this next, well, at least the next 5 to 10 year groups of kids. I think we're in good hands. A lot of people worry. I don't, because I get to see them. I get to see how they think. Fortunately, with what my line of work is, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited. Honestly, I think they're going to do some good things. I think we definitely could benefit from some of the, and it's the same in my industry. Without getting too far into it, I think we could definitely benefit with the those at the top and the echelon above us, kind of. I don't want to say dying out, but just kind of moving on into the sunset and letting some new
Well,
blood take place.
I agree with you 100%.
I'm glad to hear
No,
it.
seriously. I say it a lot. I say, and when my buddies and I, when we talk, we always say, you know, I'm not going to call the names, but it's time for him to retire. He needs to move on, so on and so forth. And I agree with you 100%.
And that's kind of, let me lead you into this one.
Okay.
Can I get a prediction out of you on this upcoming election, or should we stay clear of that and move into sports? That's how I feel.
I really do think there's going to be a changing of the guard.
Okay.
I think folks are going to come to the conclusion that the experiment wasn't successful.
That's fair.
But I was wrong 4 years ago. I'll
Yes,
just
you were.
say that. I was right. I was wrong.
Yep.
But
and I won $100 because I was right. But
right. But
again,
I think folks are gonna say enough is enough.
Well, and I mean, not to. I mean, what are we? We're almost 2 hours into it at this point. We could talk a whole other 2 hours on this.
2 hours.
I don't think anybody wants to win at this point, and so I'll leave it at that. Just based on who's running, I just feel like no one wants to win. But all right, so we got the NBA coming back in 2 weeks. You already said you don't watch the Major League Baseball until the pennant race, which I think we're kind of in, but I won't put you on the spot for that. But the NBA is going to pick up with 8 games. They're going to go right into the playoffs from there. I don't think anything from these 8 games is going to affect the seedings that much. Who do you think wins the NBA title?
Initially, well, my heart says the Lakers.
His heart? Oh, you're a Laker guy. Wow, all right.
Well, I'm a LeBron guy.
Okay.
That whoever LeBron's playing for, that's my team.
Gotcha.
But now with Rondo's hurt, he's out, and then Avery's not there. I think it's going to be the Clippers as long as everybody's healthy. I just think, when you're looking at 7-game series, I think they're gonna win it.
See, so there's 2 ways to look at it, right? And it's what you're saying. We're going to look at it traditionally, and we're not going to take into consideration that. I mean, every one of these teams has been through the same thing we've been through the last few months, right?
Right.
In a vacuum, I think the Clippers win because I just think their team 1 through 9,
Well, right,
just,
and that's the point.
They're ridiculous, right? And Kawhi Leonard doesn't have an option at this point of sitting out. Paul George isn't going to sit out. They're all going to sit. They're all going to play, and I still feel the best 1-2 in this game defensively is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and the Lakers don't have an answer for them.
Well, at 100%, when they're at 100%, yeah, I agree.
And why wouldn't? Why would Kawhi Leonard not be the closest to 100% that he possibly could be
Well,
after
he
3 months.
doesn't have right. He doesn't have an excuse to
None.
to load manage.
Exactly. The worst thing ever created in sports, load management.
Sports. And that's Pop's fault.
Oh, I agree.
Pop's the one that started it. But
he did it.
And then AD, he's so damn brittle.
Yep. He's the opposite of LeBron James.
Right. He's the opposite of LeBron James. So I just think, I just think the Clippers, their depth is just going to get them there. And then they have a really good coach too. Doc's a good coach.
Doc to me is, you know what? Here's a funny story about Doc Rivers. I remember being in Iraq in 2003, 2004, and he was the coach of the Magic at the time. And the Magic set the record for the most consecutive losses. And Doc Rivers was the coach. And it was like 21 or 22 losses, something like that. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I deploy, and this is like my Magic have devolved into the worst team in league history, and Doc Rivers the coach. But, they fired him, and he went on to the Celtics. And, obviously now Doc's a great coach. He always was. He just didn't have any players.
He always was. He just didn't have any players. Exactly.
Got to have players to be successful, man.
Yeah.
No, but the other thing I would say this is there's two teams I would like to keep an eye on, because I don't feel we're not living in normal times. We're not in a vacuum, right? So we know everyone's been affected equally by this. There's reports of – did you see this report about Chris Middleton hasn't touched a basketball in 4 months?
Well, I heard that on one of the sports talk shows earlier in the week that's what he said.
He said it. I don't know how true it is. All I know is this. If this was – If the season had progressed with no interruption, I think the finals we would have seen would have been the Clippers and the Bucks. But there are two teams I want you to keep an eye on based on the physical shape that the stars are coming in on. Now, I know Zion recently left the bubble and he's going to have to come back, but I want you to keep an eye on the Hornets because they may sneak their way in. And if they do –
I didn't know Zion left the bubble.
Yeah, he left the bubble last week. He's got a family emergency he's dealing with, so most likely –
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
But he's going to have to come back and do the quarantine thing. But Zion is reportedly, of all accounts, he's in great shape, which was his big knock, right? And then the other team I want you to keep an eye on, and I know everyone's going to laugh, but it's the Houston Rockets. Because hold on, hear me out, sir, hear me out. So, number one, James Harden is already in the best shape of his life, right?
All right. Westbrook tested positive.
He did. He's going to come back. He's going to be fine, right? So Westbrook's going to come back. Now, here's why I want you to keep an eye on them, because here's the big issue with the Houston Rockets when the playoffs normally start. James Harden plays 80 to 82 games. He is exhausted. Same with Westbrook by the time the playoffs start. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, you have literally the two best scorers probably in the game right now on the same team, coming in at as close to 100% as you possibly can. Now, I get it. Neither one of them plays defense. And if Westbrook just played a modicum of defense, he'd probably be one of the top 10 players of all time in NBA history, but he doesn't play it. He doesn't. And I don't know why, because the man is literally the hardest playing offensive player I've ever seen in my life. Like, the guy makes Jordan look like Jordan's slacking.
Yep.
That's how much I feel about Westbrook. But because they've had 3 months off, I really feel like the Houston Rockets are going to be a problem for anyone they play against, as long as the team outside of Westbrook and Harden is in good shape.
Right. No,
so there's so many wild cards.
That's a valid point, but I got to tell you, I think the 76ers the other day I saw a video of what's the point guard's name? They can't shoot.
Oh, God, Ben
Simmons.
Ben Simmons, yes.
Ben Simmons was dropping threes all over the place.
It's kind of like me.
Now, okay, it wasn't in the game. It wasn't in the game, but it looks like he
figured out how to shoot. Is what you're saying.
He figured out how to shoot, and if it's legit, again, nobody was in his face, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But if he can shoot a little bit, I think they'll be quite dangerous, at least in the East.
So, I do like to do a gambling angle on this show, and the Sixers were the perfect team to bet on and to bet against. Because I think at home prior to the shutdown, they were like 27-2.
Yep.
Most of they're barely a 500 team on the road.
Team on the road. Yep.
Yeah. So now this is what's going to make things interesting is you're going into this bubble, whatever that's going to look like. There's no fans. So that's what I don't understand in terms of how that's going to play out, because there's no home court advantage for anybody.
Right. For anybody. Right.
And it's going to be how teams individually react to that scenario, which is why I say, look, keep an eye on an outlier, the Hornets, and then keep an eye on a team like the Rockets, who have your two best scorers in the league offensively. And anything can happen. Because look, we're going to have 8 games for teams to get their shit together, and then we got to play for real. And look, we already know a 7-game series, fuck around and lose 4 games, it's over. And that's over. What I'm saying. Yeah. Like, we're not coming into this with the chemistry and all those things, the conditioning, all that stuff that had taken place prior. Everybody's kind of coming into this and new. And I know for the most part, analysts, prognosticators, they're all going to go with the standard predictions like Lakers, Clippers, Bucks. But I think there's a space for someone who people aren't expecting, much like Major League Baseball, 60-game schedule, where a team, all they got to do is get hot for 2-3 weeks. They find themselves in the playoffs,
That's
and
true.
Next thing they win.
That's true.
So
that's true.
Just saying.
And Embiid, supposedly, even though – did you see that he came in with the hazmat suit on?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. He came in with the hazmat suit on. But anyway,
that guy tries
based
too hard.
Based on what I've read, he's actually in shape now too. So I'm just saying, I just think, again,
that's a good watch.
If they're truly in the bubble, especially when they go out on the road, they have all the peripheral distractions with the strip clubs and all that stuff. So you can't do all that. You can't do all that. It's just all ball for 2 months or whatever it is. I just think anything could happen. But if I had to bet any money, I would have to put it on the Clippers. So.
Okay. And you know what? I'd feel better because you still in this current NBA, you still need shooters. And who did the Sixers let walk this offseason? JJ Redick.
Yeah, Redick.
Where did he walk to?
New Orleans.
That's right. So I'm just saying, keep an eye on the Hornets. I'm just like,
that's true.
Zion has proven. You want to know when one of the best bets, so the best bet that I discovered during the regular season was not only betting against the Sixers on the road, but Zion Williamson, every one of his games when he came back, his over-under on points was always between 20 and 22. And the dude was going for after week 1 or week 2 of his season, guy was getting 27 and up every game. You were if you follow me on, Eric at Eric TWBB, you were making some money if you were just betting on Zion to go over 22 points every night. And so these are the things I think, Zion, I know he's coming back in health in great shape. I know, unfortunately, he had to leave.
I saw a photo last week. He looks it seriously.
If he gets that right, and people are hard on him, but you got to remember the kid's fucking 19 years old.
19 years old.
Come on, dude,
right.
Greatest, freakish, most explosive athlete we've seen probably since LeBron, right?
Yep.
He doesn't have LeBron's game, but he can score, and that's all that matters.
Right. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So I feel like if that kid comes in and you've got Lonzo Ball, you got Redick out there,
and they have some players.
Holiday.
They
got a team.
They have some players. Yeah, they do. They have a squad. You're right.
Just putting it out, and then let's not forget about that. The Western Conference is stupid right now. You got Luka Doncic out there in Dallas. I don't know what's going to happen this next couple of weeks with the pickup, but next season, if we can get back to normal, we got some stars brewing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. So am I.
But I can do without all the shit on the jerseys. That's all I'm saying.
I'm with you on that, brother.
All right, sir. I think give me one before we get out of here. Give me your prediction on the NBA champ. Who do you like?
NBA?
NBA champ.
Yeah, Clippers.
He likes the Clippers. All right. And then when the NFL finally picks up, who do you like in the NFL?
Eric, it's so hard to say.
Yep.
I would just say this. The teams that are bringing back the same coach, the same quarterback, the same offensive system is going to have the huge advantages. And at this point, I think if that kid from Auburn that the Chiefs drafted in the second round, the running back, if he's half of what I think he is,
It's over.
I think it's over, man. Seriously,
It's
I
hard
think
to
it's
discount
over.
it. It's hard to discount
If they stay healthy, they're bringing back the defensive coordinator.
Yep.
With the same system. Eric, I think they're gonna be a handful, man.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, who was their competition last year? You
Right.
know, Titans, Texans, Patriots.
And you can't. The Titans can't expect for Derrick Henry to run for 200 yards every game, and Tannehill only complete 8 freaking passes.
Yeah,
they win.
If Tannehill can find a way to do more, that team's a problem. But I don't think he can do more. I mean, there's a reason the Dolphins let him go, and I think the Titans are going to regret giving him $120 million or whatever they gave him. But,
well, half of that he should give to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and Henry only got 50, right? So
he only got 50.
But that Derrick Henry is that dude. He is the best fantasy running back you can have.
Yeah,
I love that. I love watching him play. He scares if I was a defensive player, I'd be like, I got to make a business decision, and I'm going to not.
Yeah, I had to quit playing fantasy football because it got to the point, Eric, where I couldn't enjoy the games because all I was worried about was what my guys were doing, and because one year I went to my league Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. That's when Drew Brees was my quarterback. I think this was in 2008 or 2009. And I had the running back from, what was his name? Westbrook from Philly. That was
Brian Westbrook. Yep, Brian Westbrook.
Yep. So, all right. I'm getting low on battery power.
Yeah, no worries. We're going to wrap it up.
But let me plug it in here. But anyway, that's why I quit playing fantasy football, because I couldn't enjoy it.
Most people would say the opposite, but it looks like you had took it a little personal, maybe.
Yeah, I was seriously, man, I was too emotional. I just said, fuck it, I can't do this anymore, man. I'm just going to stop. Yeah.
All right. So look, we've given the people what they wanted, right? 2 hours.
I hope so.
Counting. I hope so too. I mean, I appreciate you, sir, coming on, spend some time with me. Might have to get you back on here and talk a little bit more.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Trust me. And I'm really proud of you, man.
Thank you, sir.
I really am.
It means a lot. So look, I hope everybody's listening. If you haven't in the future, go ahead and subscribe. There will be bourbon. You can follow me on Twitter at EricTWBB. You can follow Colonel Serelos here. Sir, go ahead and plug out your Twitter if you could for me.
At TheoSellers.
Theo Sellers.
At Theo Sellers.
Yep. Good man. Great man. American hero, like all of us, right? So,
again, in my own mind.
Exactly. Done a lot of great things, sir. Appreciate your service to the country. I thank you for coming on with us again. And we'll see you as soon as we get the next person on. There will be bourbon. All right.
Roger.
Airborne.
Take care, man.
Thank you, sir.
Cool. All right. Bye-bye.